service today. But if you prefer cash or check, kids will be coming around. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, thank you, choir. There's a story that I've always been drawn to about a woman named Hannah. It's told in the biblical book of 1 Samuel, and I heard it chanted last week, and it was chanted in Jewish communities around the world on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. So in this story, Hannah is married to a man named Elkanah, and she was his favorite among all of his wives. You can set that part aside if that's going to bother you. Multiple wives, that was fine. And even though she's Elkanah's favorite wife, she's unable to have children, even though she very much wants them. And the other wives tease her mercilessly about it. And she yearns to have a child. And she's so distraught by this that she spends her days weeping and fasting. Her husband can't understand her grief and asks Hannah why his love isn't as good as 10 sons. It's not the way it works, right? Hannah's soul is filled with bitterness, and she cries and pours out the prayers of her heart in the temple in Jerusalem. While she's in the temple, she makes an elaborate vow to God, promising her future son's life in service of God. Now, the priest in the temple, Eli, is watching her and sees her lips moving but doesn't hear any sound coming out and jumps to the conclusion that she's drunk and goes to reprimand her and he scolds her. And yet she has the courage to reply, "I'm not drunk. I'm in great distress and I am pouring my heart out before God." Eli replies, "Then go in peace. Bless you. And may the God of Israel grant your prayer." And this is where the story really hooks me. The narrative concludes, "And the woman went on her way and resumed eating, and her expression was no longer downcast." There's a crucial, really beautiful detail here. Because it wasn't whether God answered Hannah's prayer or not that changed her expression and brought her back to life. It was the human interaction of another person witnessing and acknowledging both her suffering and her hope that eased her pain. This is an essential truth. Being witnessed, seen, and acknowledged matters. Being seen and acknowledged saves lives. And I believe that the act of seeing and acknowledging others is a religious and moral imperative. So, show of hands, how many of us felt awkward when we were a teenager, or currently feel awkward as a teenager, or have seen people feel awkward as a teenager? Yes. So when I was an extremely awkward teenager, the place I found refuge was in my synagogue, clinging to the traditions and the prayers like lifelines. It felt like if I couldn't figure out the rules of the game of how to be a good teenager, at least I could follow the rules of religious observance, and maybe that could be a place I could fit in. Now, as you might guess, attending religious services on Saturday mornings for 3.5 hours wasn't a super popular activity for too many other teenagers. And in fact, most Sunday I'd walk into the sanctuary and look around for a friend or someone my age, and there wasn't really anyone around my age to sit with. So I sat in the back, alone in the back row, and tried so hard to fit in, to do everything right. Then comes Fred Malkin. Fred was larger than life, and he was a regular at the synagogue. He seemed to be friends with everyone. Fred was actually my first music teacher. He volunteered at the religious school to teach us Jewish music. I remember him playing the piano very jauntily with big hands. He was very excited. In synagogue, he'd sing loudly, chat loudly during the service as he wandered around and said hello to everyone, and always made a point when he was up near the microphone testimony, bonk the microphone, just, I think just to make some extra noise when he was up there. I always still think of Fred when I hear kind of a bump noise on the microphone. So one Saturday, I was in my usual spot, the otherwise empty back pew. The congregation and I were all standing and singing for one of the prayers, and Fred walks over behind me. I look up at him and catch his eye, and with this faint smile on his face, he said, "I see you." My first thought was that he must have been talking to somebody else. And my second thought was, that's kind of a disconcerting thing to say to someone. Third thought was, he must have caught me doing something wrong. But I had been trying so hard. Oh, like I said, "I see you," Fred repeated. "I see that you come every week and you sit by yourself, and I see how much you want to belong. You seem lonely, and sometimes I feel lonely here too." Well, this boggled my mind. Fred, like the biggest personality in the room, could feel lonely here. And he went on to say, "When I'm feeling lonely or worrying about fitting in, I sing harmonies. And I'm going to teach you to sing harmonies too." And then he walked off, leaving me stunned but glowing a little. I felt seen. I felt acknowledged. I felt the constraining bonds of loneliness begin to loosen. Like Hannah, someone recognized and gave voice to my pain and to my hope. And Fred, in his wisdom, gave me a way in. True to his word, in the coming weeks, I'd hear him booming out a harmony from across the sanctuary. He'd catch my eye, nod, and kind of point to his ear, suggesting that I should listen to what he was singing. And I'd smile and listen and kind of nod back, and join in that harmony once I got it. And pretty soon I felt comfortable with that and started improvising my own notes, and Fred and I would build these soaring harmonies around the congregation's ancient melodies. And people, the grown-ups that I had no idea how to talk to, would turn around in their pews to look and see where the music was coming from. And then, miracle of miracles, they'd talk to me afterwards over pastries. I gave them something to talk to me about. There were two amazing gifts that Fred gave me. The first was an understanding of how I could choose to be a part of that community. I had been straining so hard to fit in, to literally sing the same melodies as everyone else, but I couldn't stop feeling like I came up short. But singing harmonies was literally and metaphorically a way to be myself, to sing my own song, and to let my originality enhance everyone else's experience. When we sang harmonies, we were in effect saying, "I am here. I am who I am. I will turn my loneliness into beauty." The second gift was companionship. Even though we rarely spoke to each other after that, I knew Fred was an ally, a friend on the journey. And that made all the difference. I thought of Fred many years later when I heard a TED Talk from Drew Dudley, who's a leadership educator based out of Toronto, Canada. He told this story. He said, "I went to school in a little place called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick, and on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, 'I remember the first time I met you.' And then she proceeded to tell me a story that had happened 4 years earlier. She said to Drew, 'On the day before I started university, I was in a hotel room with my parents and I was so scared scared, and I was convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and dad were amazing. They were just like, look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day. And if at any point you feel like you can't do this, it's fine. Just tell us. We'll take you home. We love you no matter what. And this student says, so I went the next day and I'm standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around and I knew I just couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she said, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was an incredible feeling of peace that just came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. But just at that moment, you came out of the student union building wearing the most ridiculous hat I have ever seen. It was awesome. And you had this big sign promoting the charity Shinerama, which is students fighting cystic fibrosis. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along in your ridiculous hat, and you were handing out lollipops to people in line and talking about Shinerama. And when you got to me, you just stopped and you stared. It was kind of creepy. But then you looked at the person behind me in line, and you smiled, and you reached into your bucket, and you pulled out a lollipop, and you held it out to them, and you said, you need to give a lollipop to this beautiful person standing next to you. And she said, I have never seen anyone get so beat red so quickly. He just wouldn't even look at me and kind of held out the lollipop like this. And I felt so bad for the guy that I just took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face, and you turned to my parents and you said, look at that, first day away from home and already she's taking candy from a stranger? And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to laugh. And I know this is cheesy, she says to Drew, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but at that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew I shouldn't quit. I knew I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I could be home. And I haven't spoken to you once in those 4 years since that day, but I heard you were leaving, and I had to come up and tell you that you have been an incredibly important person in my life. And I'm going to miss you. There's a spider. Okay. There were spiders on my pulpit at the internship site in Wilson, too. I wonder what this means. Okay. So, I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm going to miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I am flattened, Drew says. And she gets about 6 feet away and turns and smiles and then says, oh, you should probably know this too. That person behind me, I'm still dating them 4 years later. A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, Drew said, he got my invitation to their wedding. But here's the kicker, Drew concludes. I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment, and I have searched my memory banks for it because it's funny and I should remember doing it, but I don't. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd had on anyone's life, a moment so powerful that a woman would walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, you've been an important person in my life, that was a moment that I couldn't even remember. Drew concluded his TED Talk by asking his audience these questions, and I'll ask us here today too. You can raise your hands. How many of us all have had a lollipop moment? A moment where somebody said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? Raise your hand if somebody did something ever that made your life better. Just about all of us. Great. Put your hands down. Now, how many of us have told that person that they did it? Hands back up if you told them. Far fewer. And that's what Drew found in his TED Talk audience too. See, why not? Drew says, we celebrate birthdays, which I'm glad we do, where all we have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet, we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And I guarantee that every single one of you, have said or done something that has made somebody else's life better. And if you think you haven't, just think about all those people whose hands didn't go up when I asked if they told that lollipop person. They just haven't told you yet. In his book, All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, Unitarian Universalist minister Robert Fulghum said, you may never have proof of your life's importance, but you are more important than you think. There are always those who couldn't do without you. The rub is that you don't always know who. So here and now, this is my wish for us. Let's let each other know. Let's thank those who have made our lives fundamentally better by seeing us when we felt invisible, by giving us a way into community when we felt alone. Let's pay that kindness forward and see each other, and turn to one another and invite each other in. And in case no one has said this to you recently, you are important. Your voice matters, and I see you. And I'm so glad you're here. Amen. In the spirit of all of the ways we journey together through life, we sing our closing hymn. It's number 128 in your gray hymnals. For all that is our life. I invite you to rise in body and spirit or raise your voices as we sing together.
For each which other serve, for services we give, for work and its reward, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrows we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each good thing we learn, for fearful hours at last, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all that is a gift, which we are called to use, to build a common good, and make our own days bright.
We join together in our call to ministry, which is printed on the orders of service. We go forth into the world in peace,
To act with works of love, to affirm each person's dignity, and to cherish the living earth.
Right before our benediction, I'll invite you all to coffee hour downstairs. Our elevator is still on the fritz after the lightning strike, so you can head down the stairs to join folks for a coffee hour. There's also at noon a drop-in covenant group that Nathan mentioned. Anyone who wants to sit in a small group and reflect on the theme of voice is totally welcome in the library about noon. Beloveds, you are important. Your voice matters. And even though I'm just getting to know you, I see you. And I'm so glad we are on this journey together. Go in peace, make peace, be at peace. Amen.
Is that a mirror image? It's like backwards. Why is that? That's weird. And then probably has an outline.
I have no idea. Yeah.